On the 23rd of November, 1963, television history was made. Doctor Who aired its first episode, An Unearthly Child, thus beginning a legacy. The series would run for another 26 years before ending, followed by an attempted revival in 1996, and finally a successful relaunch in 2005, which just began airing its 11th series. If you count the various books, comics, and audio dramas that aired in the interim years when the show was off the air, and are still going on to this day, then Doctor Who has been going strong for a milestone of 55 years. Happy 55th anniversary, Doctor Who! And hey guys, this is Sir Jedi Sentinel, and welcome to a very special Sentinel vlog. I've been planning to do this video for some time. Originally I planned to do it before Series 11 began airing, but things happened, life got in the way, and I had to put it off. I then began to think that since this video kind of goes over the show as a whole, it would be perfect to do it celebrating the show's 55th anniversary. So today I will be talking about my favorite televised story for each Doctor. Before we begin, I'd like to establish some ground rules from this list so you know how I'm going to be rating each story. 1. Yes, you heard me right. I said televised stories, and I want to emphasize this. Mostly, this is a practice in fairness. I have not read any of the books or comics, so I can't count them. As for the audios, I haven't heard audios for every Doctor. And some Doctors, the first, second, third, and fourth Doctors mainly, and the New Who Doctors, but that's kind of different, I haven't heard that many for. Also, even though a short trip has been announced, so far, there are currently no 12th Doctor audios. Sticking to the TV show itself is merely a practice in fairness. All the Doctors, well, most of the Doctors, will be judged on even ground here. This brings me to my second, third, and fourth points. I will not be talking about Jodie Whittaker in this list. As I said, I originally planned this before Series 11 was to start airing, because the eras of the previous Doctors were all complete, and the 13th Doctor had yet to begin. Jodie's era is still ongoing, so to pick a favorite story before we've seen all her stories is a little ridiculous. I will also be skipping Sir John Hurt's War Doctor. As far as the TV series goes, outside of his cameos in The Name of the Doctor and Listen, the War Doctor only had one major appearance, the 50th anniversary special, The Day of the Doctor. So, by default, with the previous parameters discussed, this has to be my favorite War Doctor story. And while it's okay, I have some issues with it. Similarly, I will not be going over Paul McGann's 8th Doctor. The 8th Doctor had only 2 appearances on the small screen. The TV movie, the aforementioned attempted reboot in 1996, and the short The Night of the Doctor. Of the two, The Night of the Doctor is the better one. I will briefly say that most of what I like about The Night of the Doctor is that it's better than the movie, but it is good on its own merits as well. Also, I argue the validity of Night of the Doctor being a televised story. It originally debuted online, and is only shown paperclip to the front of reruns of Day of the Doctor. I've spent enough time rambling on how I'm going to do this list, so let's just jump in and get going already. Allons-y, Geronimo. Insert other Doctor catchphrases here. Starting off, my favorite first Doctor story is the pure historical The Aztecs. After the TARDIS materializes in an Aztec tomb, Barbara puts on the bracelet of the priest buried there. When the TARDIS team leaves the tomb, Barbara is mistaken for a reincarnated goddess because she is wearing said bracelet. Barbara once wrote a paper on the Aztec people and lamented over all the art and history that was lost when Cortez invaded. She decides, against the Doctor's advice, that if she can convince the Aztec people to give up the act of human sacrifice, they won't be seen as barbarians when Cortez arrives, possibly saving the Aztec culture. One of the things I love about the Aztecs is that, in hindsight, this is the show's first fixed points in time story. The concept of fixed points in time, moments in chronology that cannot be changed or altered, will not be established until the revived series. But, if you think about it, the Aztecs really was the first story to do it. Barbara wants to undo the Aztecs' ritual of human sacrifice, but the Doctor warns her, you cannot change history. Not one line. There's a lot of reasons why the Aztecs is regarded as a classic. The tension remains high as the TARDIS team plays a game of cat and mouse with Tlatoxel, the High Priest of Sacrifice and the story's antagonist. There's also a lot of humor mixed throughout this story as well, most notably when the Doctor forms a romantic bond with an Aztec widow. Though the pacing is a little slow, causing the story to drag at times, there is a lot to love about the Aztecs. Taking the spot of my favorite second Doctor story is The War Games. The Doctor, Jamie, and Zoe arrive in what appears to be a World War I battlefield. But something is off. The questions continue to pile up until the Doctor learns the truth. Soldiers from various wars in Earth's history have been abducted by an alien race called the Warlords. To complicate matters, they're being aided by one of the Doctor's own people, the War Chief. When the Doctor realizes how much damage the Warlords have caused, he's left with only one course of action. A decision so drastic, it will affect the rest of his lives. Many people consider The War Games Patrick Troughton's magnum opus, and it's easy to see why. This is a fantastic story. Now, I do agree with the critics, at 10 episodes, this story does run a little long, and I do feel large portions of the middle could be removed, as it does get kind of competitive. But The War Games starts strong and ends even stronger. This is also the first story to name and introduce the Doctor's race, the Time Lords. It is also arguably their best appearance in the entire series. The third Doctor is next, and my heart goes out to the 10th anniversary story, The Three Doctors. Mysterious phenomena begin to occur with the appearance of a black hole. People go missing, mysterious creatures appear, and above all, the black hole itself is siphoning the energy from Gallifrey, the home world of the Time Lords. With no other recourse, the Time Lords call upon the Doctor to save them. But the Doctor may not be enough. Breaking their sacred laws of time, the Time Lords call upon the first 3 incarnations of the Doctor to save them. I'm sure I'll get some flack from this somewhere. Someone is bound to say that a multi-Doctor story shouldn't count, because it features multiple Doctors. Because it features multiple Doctors. To that, I say watch them again. So far, there have been 5 multi-Doctor stories, not counting that horrendous EastEnders crossover dimensions in time. Depending on which tenure they aired, the Doctor of that era is still taking the leading role. For example, even though Twice Upon a Time features both the 1st and 12th Doctors, the 12th Doctor is still pulling most of the weight. It's the same here. The 3rd Doctor is still doing most of the heavy lifting. In my opinion, there is only 2 multi-Doctor stories that really did it successfully as an ensemble piece. Spoilers, neither of them are on this list. In my opinion, The Three Doctors is the best of the televised multi-Doctor stories. The banter between the 2nd and 3rd Doctors worked really well. Allegedly, that was because John Pertwee was not a fan of Patrick Troughton's ad-libbing and improv. And even William Hartnell was delightfully brusque as the 1st Doctor, despite being debilitated by his illness. One of my biggest praises for The Three Doctors is its villain, Omega. A story that requires multiple Doctors demands a threat worthy of needing multiple Doctors to stop it. This hasn't always happened. Needless to say, the 3 Doctors accomplished this in spades. The one drawback I feel is in the use of the companions. Because this story focuses on the multiple companions, flubbed there. Because this story focuses on the multiple Doctors, the companions, in this case Joe and the Brigadier, and potentially Sergeant Benton, depending on how you feel about him, take a back seat and don't really get to do as much. Other than that, The Three Doctors is a fun and exciting story. This brings us to the man, the legend, the Fourth Doctor, Tom Baker. While he isn't my favorite Doctor, just wait, we're getting there, even I can acknowledge he is the best. And what of his 7-year run is my favorite? The Deadly Assassin. After parting ways with Sarah Jane, the Doctor finds himself drawn back to Gallifrey, where he receives a psychic vision that he will assassinate the President of the Time Lords. When he arrives, he finds himself ensnared in a trap set by an old foe. For the longest time, I considered The Deadly Assassin my favorite story in all of Doctor Who, as well as my favorite story by writer Robert Holmes. Now that I've seen more of the series, I hesitate to make this declaration. However, one thing that hasn't changed is that this is still my favorite Fourth Doctor story. Based on the Manchurian Candidate, The Deadly Assassin is a really good mystery thriller. It has one of my favorite side characters in Castellan Spandrel. In wrongfully accused and fugitive type stories, there is an obvious draw to make the cop, the lawkeeper, the bad guy, and they don't do it with the Castellan. He simply follows where the leads in the mystery take him. And when they point away from the Doctor, the two team up to find out what's really going on. Above all, the biggest reason I love this story is for Peter Pratt as the Master. If you saw my Master ranking video, I listed Peter Pratt as my personal favorite Master. His presence in this story is so threatening, so imposing, and that voice is just amazing. In the classic series, The Deadly Assassin is probably one of my most rewatched Doctor Who stories, and with good reason. Another Robert Holmes story, The Caves of Androzani, takes the spot of my favorite Fifth Doctor story. With his new companion Perry, the Doctor travels to the planet Androzani Minor, only to be caught up in a bitter war between arms dealers, politicians, and an embittered scientist and his army of androids. Things get worse for the Doctor and his companion when they find themselves infected with spectrotoxemia, a poison for which there is no cure. Across all fronts, the clock is ticking, forcing the Doctor to make a decision with devastating consequences. The Caves of Androzani has a reputation as the Fifth Doctor's best story, the best story to come out of Doctor Who in the 80s, and one of the best stories of all time. And with good reason. It is. One of the things I really like about this story is the side characters. Usually in stories like this, with situations like these, there's a very clear right side and wrong side. You know, we know who the good guy is, we know who the bad guy is. That doesn't happen in the Caves of Androzani. Everyone operates in a morally gray area. One moment, a character will be in the right, only to immediately be in the wrong a moment later. It gives this story a gritty realism. The other thing that makes the Caves of Androzani stand out is the actual moment of the Fifth Doctor's regeneration. While not my favorite, that would be the brink of death, even I can't deny that this is the best regeneration in the series. While I often tend to worry about overhype and overselling something, The Caves of Androzani is definitely a story that lives up to its reputation. The Sixth Doctor is next, and my favorite from Colin's TV run is The Two Doctors. In writer Robert Holmes' final completed story, there's no rest for the Doctor. Despite wanting to take a holiday, something is very, very wrong. Meanwhile, back in his second lifetime, the Doctor was sent on a mission by the Time Lords to stop a potentially dangerous time travel experiment, only to be captured. Can the Doctor save himself before the secret of time travel is unlocked, and the consequences reverberate throughout his chronology? It always seems to come up, and even though I try to avoid it because I imagine it's getting annoying by now, but if you haven't seen my previous videos, Colin Baker's Sixth Doctor is my favorite Doctor. Now, The Two Doctors is far from a perfect story, Most stories from Collins' run sadly are. My biggest issue with the two Doctors is the Sontarans. When I talked about the three Doctors, I mentioned how most of the multi-Doctor stories lack a foe worthy of multiple Doctors. As much as I like it, the two Doctors is the worst offender. What is it that the second and sixth Doctors are up against? A Sontaran. A foe that the Doctor has repeatedly faced and bested on his own. And that brings me to my other major issue with this story. The Sontarans look terrible. After their debut in the third Doctor story, The Time Warrior, every subsequent appearance of the Sontarans in the classic series got worse and worse. And I mean this in terms of appearance. The costumes and makeup became absolutely atrocious. And, on the whole, they're practically useless and pointless in this story. Now that I've aired my grievances, let's end on a positive note with the sixth Doctor, and I'll talk about what I like. First of all, the performances. Across the board, there is not a bad performance given in this story. The highlights are Colin Baker and Patrick Troughton, as well as the late Jacqueline Pierce, whom we recently lost earlier this year, as the story's main antagonist, Cassini. One of the other huge positives is that for me personally, this story doesn't drag. Allow me to explain. In the previous season, there was a fifth Doctor story called Resurrection of the Daleks. While this was still a multi-part story, the format was changed. Resurrection of the Daleks aired in 45-minute episodes rather than 25-minute episodes. This was viewed as such a success that the entirety of Colin's first season was done in 45-minute episodes. Of course, in his second season, this would be changed back to the 25-minute format. As much as I love season 22, and given the general consensus, I feel like I like it more than most, I feel like doing these multi-part serials in 45 minutes was a misstep. It required episodes to be padded, which affected the pacing and caused stories to drag. I don't have that problem with the two Doctors. During the entirety of its 3 episodes, I was engaged, the energy never dropped, I never felt bored. In conclusion, while The Two Doctors is my favorite story for my favorite Doctor, it is one that I sadly have to recommend with a grain of salt. And we're closing out Classic Who with the 7th Doctor and Battlefield. The Doctor and Ace stumble upon a war from another dimension, a war between the Knights of King Arthur and the armies of Morgaine Le Fay. The Doctor himself learns that he is, /was, /will become the legendary Merlin. To end this war, the Doctor finds himself teaming up with old friends. There's a lot to like about Battlefield. Admittedly, I'm not usually a fan of the Doctor plays around with history, causing or being involved in this event intentionally or accidentally. I've only ever found those stories average at best. Not Battlefield, though. And I think the fact that Battlefield focuses on a legend rather than history really helps. I like how Battlefield plays with the King Arthur legend. Not just making the Doctor Merlin, I feel like that was kind of a predictable step, but I mean how it's set. It's not just the Doctor and Ace going back in time to when these events in history presumably would have taken place. Instead, it's set in the modern day, or the modern day of when the story was filmed, and Arthur, Morgaine, and their forces are actually from an alternate dimension. After its absence in the 6th Doctor era, this story also sees the Doctor team up with UNIT once again. Even though it's not the team we know and love, it's always nice to see UNIT, and I really enjoyed its current head, Brigadier Bambera. And of course, we have Lethbridge Stewart once again meeting up with the Doctor. The Brigadier is always nice to see. Jean Marsh, who played the first Doctor's companion, Sarah Kingdom, in The Daleks' Master Plan, plays Morgaine Le Fay, and she is wonderful in this. In my opinion, Morgaine is the best one-off villain the show has ever had, and from start to finish, Battlefield is just a lot of fun. As I said, we are skipping the 8th Doctor and the War Doctor, so now we're on the Revived series and the 9th Doctor. And my favorite 9th Doctor story? Dalek. The Doctor and Rose find themselves in the presence of a madman in power. Against all odds, this man has acquired the last Dalek in existence. Something that shakes the Doctor to his very core. Rob Shearman's only credit for Doctor Who on screen is an adaptation of his earlier audio drama, Jubilee. Though Jubilee and Dalek have the same core premise, they are vastly different stories in execution. And I think that helps. Dalek is different enough from Jubilee that it doesn't feel like a rehash or a cut-and-paste remake. There's also some wonderful acting from Christopher Eccleston. The 9th Doctor is very fun-loving, but he's serious when the situation calls for it. However, in Dalek, that situation is taken to new levels as he's basically panicking the entire episode. The side characters are a little on the one-note side, and I don't really find them all that memorable, except for Adam, but that's more due to the episode after this. I will say, though, that this episode did accomplish making the Daleks threatening again. I mean, you have one Dalek in this episode, and you have an entire army trying to stop this thing, and the Dalek mows them all down. Compared to later New Who episodes where you have an army of Daleks, and they're pretty much just defeated by the Doctor breathing on them. Mostly I find myself at a loss for words, probably because compared to the serials, Dalek is only one episode. Also, I'm pretty sure this video is starting to drag. Bottom line, Dalek is great. For David Tennant's 10th Doctor, my favorite story is the two-part Silence in the Library, Forest of the Dead. The Doctor and Donna answer a distress call, bringing them to a planet-wide library. There, the Doctor meets the archaeologist River Song, who seems to know more about the Doctor than she lets on. What's going on, and what dark secret is hidden in the library? I'm not gonna lie, I've watched this two-parter more than any other episode of Doctor Who. Mostly by coincidence. Every time the BBC marathons the show, it always seems to be the 10th Doctor era, and I always seem to catch it when this story is airing. Not that I mind. Silence in the Library, Forest of the Dead introduced us to River Song, who is one of my favorite characters. Side note, if you haven't seen my other videos, Big Finish's The Diary of River Song is my favorite Doctor Who spin-off. I love how she just plays off the 10th Doctor while giving nothing away. That's one of the best parts of River. Like the Brigadier, she just can play off any Doctor. The Vashta Nerada were an interesting concept that I felt were utilized very well in this story, but above all, my favorite part of this story is Donna's subplot. In the second half of this two-parter, Forest of the Dead, Donna lives out her life in a virtual reality. If you haven't seen these episodes, it's a long story. I also like River's goodbye to the Doctor, which becomes an even better, more powerful scene after the Husbands of River Song. There really isn't much more to say, so it's a great story. We're up to the 11th Doctor now, and we're on another single episode, The Name of the Doctor. The Doctor's long battle with the godlike, Lovecraftian great intelligence comes to a head when the intelligence forces the Doctor to the planet Trenzalore, the site of the Doctor's death. Just when it seems victory is imminent for the intelligence, Clara jumps in to save the day, proving exactly why she's the impossible girl. Clara is also about to learn the Doctor's oldest secret. The Name of the Doctor is the finale of the Impossible Girl story arc from Series 7. Thankfully, this means Clara, who despite strong, divisive opinions is a companion I like. She was my first companion when I started watching, after all. This means that Clara can stop being a plot device and start being a character. Throughout her run on the series, that was Clara's biggest drawback in my opinion. Thankfully, when she teams up with Peter Capaldi later, this is an issue that will be remedied. The name of the Doctor is also the beginning of the 11th Doctor trilogy, which will continue through the Day of the Doctor and conclude with his regeneration in the Time of the Doctor. The Great Intelligence is a great, threatening, imposing villain in this story. On the whole, despite a series of lackluster episodes, I do feel the Great Intelligence was done better in the new series than in the classic series, and Richard E. Grant was just phenomenal in the role. I've often had issues with how easy everything came to the 11th Doctor, but I feel the Great Intelligence was the closest this Doctor ever had to a challenge. The biggest reason I love this story is the revelation of the Doctor's name. It might be a point of contention, but I love how it was revealed. The Doctor tells Clara, "What my real name is unimportant. The name I chose for myself is the Doctor. The name you choose for yourself is more important than the name you're given at birth. It's like a promise you make to yourself." And in my opinion, this reveal is perfect. The Doctor is so shrouded in anonymity and has been for so long that I feel if anything concrete was revealed by any writer, not just Stephen Moffat or Mark Gatiss or whoever the writer was, if anything was revealed by anyone, I don't think it ever could have lived up to the expectations fans have built up for themselves. This reveal gave us the information we wanted while keeping the Doctor's anonymity intact, and it wasn't flawless, but I thought it was probably as good as we were going to get, and I really like the end result we ultimately got. I can't really think of a way to close out this one, so let's just move on. That brings us to Peter Capaldi's 12th Doctor, my first Doctor, and another two-parter is my favorite, the Series 10 finale, World Enough in Time, The Doctor Falls. Hoping that what Missy said is true about wanting to redeem herself, the Doctor, Bill, and Nardole take her out into the universe to find a situation where she can try to do some good. Their search brings them to a ship on the edge of a black hole. Matters become complicated when Bill gets caught in the crossfire. To the Doctor's horror, this ship is from the planet Mondas, and an old foe is lurking in the shadows. To save everyone, the Doctor will have to sacrifice everything. Speaking purely of the revised series, this is the best Cyberman story in New Who. One of the things about the Cybermen is that they always talk about cyber conversion, but it's something we'd never really seen. We only get glimpses of it in World Enough in Time, but it's portrayed as body horror, which was a genius choice. The scene with Bill and the suffering patient repeatedly screaming, "Kill me," only to be muted rather than helped, is particularly chilling. Admittedly, this two-parter is not perfect. My biggest issue is the presence of the John Sim Master. He didn't really contribute much to the story. He seemed to only be there for fan service. Now, normally, I don't mind fan service so long as it has relevance to the plot. Fan service, just for the sake of fan service, which is what the Master in this story is, doesn't work. The performances across this entire story are phenomenal, Pearl Mackie as Bill being the standout. There are a lot of great scenes throughout this story too. The creepy hospital Bill is in, Missy meeting the Master, her earlier self, the Doctor's lone stand against the Cybermen. The ending and the reappearance of the first Doctor is a personal favorite of mine. World Enough in Time, The Doctor Falls is a very solid story. For me, the pros definitely outweigh the cons, and I would gladly recommend this one in a heartbeat. Well, there you have it. My favorite story for each Doctor. Televised, that is. Here's to 55 years of this wild, crazy, amazing show. What are your favorite stories? Television, book, audio? Please. I invite you to start a conversation in the comments below. Did you like what you saw? Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Then click the bell next to subscribe to get notifications when I upload, because subscribe doesn't do that anymore. Also in the description below, you'll find the link to my Twitter where you can find other updates. This is Sir Jedi Sentinel, and I will see you guys next time.